Good afternoon. You'll see a cat's tail come into view because the cat has won, of course, and she is accompanying us in our voyage through hypermobility today. I was going to do my next tarot video, but I had some questions that occurred this morning, and I thought that I'd address them in a hypermobility session here now. When I went to church this morning, a couple of people came up to me and talked to me about hypermobility because they didn't understand what hypermobility meant. And you know, it is very confusing because when we use the word hypermobile, people immediately think, that's not me because I'm not flexible. But it really has nothing terribly to do with flexible. It has to do with flexibility as a marker for hypermobility, but not always visible. People have said to me that they're not flexible, but hypermobility is that person who has the arms that look, the elbows that look like they're put on wrongly. They sort of go up instead of straight. And when they put their hands behind them, they can almost clap. They don't know what straight is. They can't immediately put their arms out level with their shoulders or in a straight line, so their left hand is not in the straight line with their right hand, because they just don't know. When they do trikonasana, they put the hand up and then they put it back so far that it looks very odd. But they will tell you that they're not flexible because they don't understand how flexible that they are. They expect a flexibility of a dancer where it's a controlled flexibility. Most dancers, by the way, are hypermobile. It could be those hyper extended knees, so the knees go back, hyperflex, so the knees go backwards instead of being able to stand up. When the person goes into tree, they kind of stand oddly so that they push their hip out in order to achieve it. And if you bring the hip in, they no longer can stand straight because they've never thought about it. They may not have walked on their full foot when they were younger. They might have walked primarily on their toes. All those are flags that indicate that there is a collagen problem, a mutation in the collagen genetically. So you can see the hypermobility in its small visibility of that. You can see that they're hypermobile, but if you treat that without thinking about the rest, you're only getting a portion. One of the persons who came to me this morning with regard to hypermobility is a therapist who deals with people who are with addictions and traumas and things like that. And she said, but none of them are hypermobile. Well, how would she know? They're sitting in front of her. They're not moving. She had no idea how they moved into her office. What do they look like when they walk in? When they reach for a chair, how do they do it? What do their elbows look like when they reach for a chair? When they're standing still, what are their knees doing? Do they crack their hands? You know, these people who crack their hands, hypermobile. Can they bend their fingers right back? Hypermobile. Do they have irritable bowel syndrome? Are they dyslexic? Are they following their parents' pattern of anxiety and depression? All these are small flags, and a person might have a number of them, and the flag of hypermobility might be minute in comparison to the internal hypermobile flags that are going on. So when I spoke to this therapist about what hypermobility means to us, she was staggered and said, well, I've got to come and talk to you about that. Well, yes, most people do. And, I'm not saying we can cure hypermobility. No. What I'm saying is that hypermobility is a symptom of an underlying thing, and this symptom you might have 5 symptoms, and a lot of clients have 5 therapists. They go to an osteo for the back, and they go to a speech therapist for this, and a learning disability person for that, and somebody who deals with colons for that, and so a lot of money and a lot of time is being wasted on stuff that can't be fixed, that can be understood and worked with, but in the long term it can be ameliorated, it can be lessened, and by being understood you can get over it. I was hypermobile when I was younger, and how that manifested in me was irritable bowel syndrome, a hypersensitivity to some foods, a very lax colon, because the collagen is a protein, and if the protein is not put together properly, then the muscles are not going to work in the way that they should, and the muscles in your colon are not going to be squishing properly, and so that has been an ongoing problem in my life. But when I was younger, my mother, who didn't understand, and nobody did at that time, what was going on, because food was the way she expressed her affection for me, when I didn't like the food, she took it as a rejection. So she wanted to reject me before I rejected her, and so it went on in our relationship. So if my mother had been able to understand how to manage these symptoms, our relationship would have been much better. That it's manifests in families so insidiously and so unfortunately. I lost children because their lungs didn't develop. Why didn't their lungs develop? Because the protein was mutated and could never happen. And now they could do things with that. They would give steroid injections and various other things to manage that problem. But when I lost my children, I carried them full term, but they died afterwards. It was a really big deal, and they couldn't do anything. Luckily, when my son was born, by the time my son was born, they were able to manage it a lot better. And whilst he had a very bad time with his lungs and his physical body, and I had a lot of trouble coming to terms with most everything about every time he had a problem, I just thought, oh, he's going to die, so I stepped back instead of stepping forward. So yes, it sort of, in the Bible it says these things are visited upon the 3rd and 4th generations. Well, they probably might be, but my parents and my parents' parents all had these problems. I know my mother did, and I can understand it now, but when we were together I didn't understand it. Now I do. And now I would be able to explain it to her, but it's too late. Now I can explain it to my children, but they're not particularly interested because they don't think it matters. Well, yes, it does. And I'm sure that when they have children, or with their children, that as their children progress and mature, these problems will become evident. And maybe they'll be interested then. But they think, oh no, that's your problem, that's not my problem. It's a genetic heritage, it's everybody's problem. Just the same as your parents' problems will be genetically imprinted on you. So yes, what I'm saying is that hypermobility is not the same as flexibility. Flexibility, we can deal with flexibility, but flexibility, the way that we look at it now, is a flag, an indicator that something else is going on in the body. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a neurophysiologist or any of those clever things. I'm just a yoga teacher with 50-something years experience of seeing these things happen in my yoga class over and over and over and over again. And so I'm talking to you through experience, and I'm talking to you through I'm a person who's been able to help those people because I was able to help myself. One of the disconcerting things when you're hypermobile, one of the symptoms, one of the flags is scoliosis. Having a lordosis or a kyphosis or something like that in the spine. So the spine isn't straight, it has bends and twists. And mine did. And I was determined when I was in my 30s that would change. And my doctor said, no, you can't change that. That's how you are. Your bones have stopped growing, and you're just going to have to live with that. Well, I didn't want to live with that. And it took me a whole year of a very simple yoga exercise every day because I was determined. But it was a very simple thing I could almost do before I got out of bed if I wanted to. And I did that every day. And not only did I fix my back, and my back is still fixed, but I grew 3/4 of an inch because my back straightened up that much. And when you're a shorty like me, 3/4 of an inch is a mile. It is a very good thing to do. I was talking, as I said, to a friend today about hypermobility, and she said that ever since she was a child, she's had a sore back. And now she's in her 50s, and the sore back just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And nothing that they did made any difference. She had adjustments, and she did all kinds of things, and it didn't make any difference. And probably about 8 months ago, she decided to take another tack and look at hypermobility and look at the joints that most manifested with her, and she had a hip problem. And the hip problem was that the top of the bone of the leg, the femur, was oblong instead of round, so it didn't fit properly into the socket. And when she moved in a certain way, it caused problems within the hip. And she was so used to the problem in the hip, she didn't even think about that, and that problem was manifesting in the back. And that hypermobility, that hypermobile hip, could have been fixed other ways, but how she dealt with it was surgically, and now she walks 5 kilometres a day and doesn't think about that at all. But we often think that the problem with the back is the problem with the back, but in her case, she managed to get onto a good osteo, and it was identified as a hip problem. But that's typical with hypermobile. You think it's this problem, but it's that problem. And it's really interesting to look at the body in a different way. When we think about the core, it's just this muscle in the front. But every muscle right through the whole of the central muscular system manifests in the core, and the core manifests in others. So if your core is not strong, you're not able to support yourself well. And if you have a collagen problem, if you're hypermobile, then your pelvic girdle may not be strong, no matter how much you work on it, because you're not working on it properly. So although I'm rabbiting on, I hope that this makes you understand that what you think is happening in the class in front of you may not be happening. All this changes how we teach yoga and how we look at people and how we teach a yoga class. So yoga, as I see it now, my class is a remedial yoga. I don't do Ashtanga and I don't do Iyengar. I do remedial and restorative yoga, and I love it. Doesn't matter whether I'm doing it in a chair or doing it standing up or doing it walking or whatever I'm doing it as a remedial yoga. So if you want to learn how to do a yoga therapy kind of session that I call remedial yoga, then you come and see me, because I can help you in that. Don't forget, we have teacher training on the first Sunday in every month. If you would like to come to a teacher training session and you're not a teacher trainer with me, please just let me know. Email me at yogafirst@netcon.net.au. Let me know who you are, what your experience is, and that you would like to come to teacher training. And I will be coming to Sydney probably in the next school holidays, because I'm not going to work in my studio in the school holidays, but I use it as an opportunity to come to the various states. That means I will do 4 visits this year to correspond with each school holiday. And I hope that you plan to see me. So if you are in Sydney, which will be my first trip, please let me know. Probably, I'm not sure when the school holidays are. They're on the my website, yogabeautiful.com.au. So go there, look at where the school holidays are, and subscribe to the newsletter, and I will keep you up to date with what's happening in my life and where I am going next. I'm sure you can see the cat's tail. She's loving being here with me. I tried to keep her out, but there's no. She's a Burmese. She thinks that she's in charge of me, and she probably is. Anyway, I hope that you've understood and responded well to this Hyper Mobility 101, and will take the opportunity to come and see me when I'm in Sydney, and take the opportunity to come to teacher training in the first Sunday in every month in the afternoon. Please look on the website, find out about things, and give me an email, and I will keep you informed of what's happening. And you're welcome, even if you're not a teacher trainer with me, if you let me know. You can't just drop in with no experience, but if you are a teacher trainer and you want to know, if you're a teacher or you're training to be a teacher and you want to know more about hypermobility, then you're welcome to come to class, as long as I know who you are and what your experience is. Okay? So have a lovely afternoon. Namaste. I'm off to feed the cat.